Oh man, man, oh man! I am very happy with my predictions that I placed last week prior to the Bills hosting the football team in Week 3 of the 2021 season. The main reason why I record myself ranting about stuff is so I personally can go back and listen to them at some point. And I had predicted the Bills would win handily against the football team. I predicted that it would be somewhat of a bounce back game. And I think my official prediction was 31 to 17, and it ended up being 43 to 21. So, was I quite aligned with the official prediction? No, but I mean, the point was that they were going to win, and the game wasn't really going to be too threatening, wasn't going to be too close. Maybe my 31 to 17 score prediction saw the Redskins score that touchdown to draw them within 14 when there was like a minute left and they had no timeouts, something like that. And there was never really any doubt throughout this game. I didn't think so. The Bills jumped out to a 21 to nothing lead. It did at one point get to 21 to 14 after a score from the football team, followed by a fucking weird kickoff. The bounce on that, whoa! I can't even really fault the Bills special teams too much, because I mean it was like kind of a squib kick, and the bounce that thing made. I was watching the game at a bar, and I went to the bathroom around the time that the kickoff happened, so I didn't get to see it. But when I saw it like later on in highlights, I was like, "What the fuck?" Because I remember I went to the bathroom right after they were kicking the extra point after Washington scored their first touchdown, and took a mean ass shit. Came back maybe 5 minutes, maybe, and they were kicking another extra point. I was like, "What the fuck? Wow, how did they score so fast?" And then I saw they recovered that kick, I guess onside style in a way. That was just a ridiculous bounce, so I can't really fault the Bills there. But I mean, it was 21 to 14 in the second quarter, and then at halftime it was 27 to 14, and then it became 36 to 14, and then I think it became 43 to 14, and then 43 to 21 being the final. I mean, this was a blowout, and this was definitely a get right game, I guess. After the Bills didn't really look themselves the first couple weeks, offensively at least. Josh Allen was fantastic. He was every bit as good as he was last year this week. 5 total touchdowns, 4 through the air, over 350 yards passing, no interceptions, no turnovers. I mean, it was pretty much a perfect game offensively. I guess they didn't run the ball fantastically, but when the hell are you gonna like have a game where you throw for that many yards and you run for like more than like 200? Like nobody in the NFL ever is gonna have like a 350 to 400 yard passer as well as like a running back with like over 100 or 150 yards. Like that is not gonna happen. Like maybe a game last year where Tannehill threw for like 250 and a couple touchdowns, and Henry went off for like 100 or 200 yards and a touchdown. But it's just so incredibly rare. So I think the Bills, especially when you factor in that he didn't get sacked a single time. Josh Allen's pass protection, honestly, week 1 was pretty rough. And the Steelers had a great front. TJ Watt, Melvin Ingram, they ate. Even Cameron Hayward to a lesser extent. Last week, perfectly fine. But the Dolphins don't have much of a pass rush. Emmanuel Ogba. Ugh. But this week, tall task. Chase Young, Montez Sweat, Jonathan Allen, Deron Payne. No sacks. He didn't get sacked a single fucking time. And I mean, they didn't even really pressure him that much, like at all. Like the pass protection was amazing. So it was kind of strange. But hey, I'm all for it. So whenever you factor in the pass protection he got, how well they were able to throw the ball, and I mean they didn't really need to run the ball. So it's like, yeah, Zach Moss ran for 60 yards. Singletary only averaged like 2.5 a carry. But I mean, come on, they were up double-digit points for like 80%, 90% of the game. They didn't need to run the ball that well. The short passing game, I mean, Josh Allen completed 32 passes. I mean, I'm not going to fault that. I think the Bills offense performed about as well as you could have expected. And it was a perfect get-right game. And I will admit, the football team's secondary can certainly be had. That kind of reminds me a little bit of the Buccaneers defense, where, you know, they can be a really good defensive unit when the pass rush is really potent. But when the pass rush isn't very potent and the offensive line can hold up, you know, their back end's really not much. You know, I didn't see Landon Collins. I mean, was he hurt or something? I did not see him on the field. Yeah, I don't think he did play. He had a lot of tackles and a tackle for loss. Interesting. Didn't know that. But I mean, Kendall Fuller, he's a pretty good player. But outside of like him and Landon Collins and like, I guess William Jackson at this point, I don't know. There's just, and I talked about this before. I mean, they don't really have much defensively outside of their front, right? And when their front did not play very well today, you know, they were exposed. And, you know, I just want to give hella props to the Bills offense as a whole, you know. And what are the odds, right? I don't start Cole Beasley just because I didn't expect this offensive firepower, like 43 points, 5 Josh Allen touchdowns, maybe 3, maybe 30 points. So I didn't start Cole Beasley. I did start Stephon Diggs, as always. And, of course, Stephon Diggs has probably the worst receiving game of all of the Bills' pass catchers, prominent pass catchers. I guess maybe Dawson Knox, you know, he had 4 catches for 49, but he had a touchdown. Stephon Diggs, 6 for 62, which is okay. I mean, it's an all right game, I guess, for not making much of an impact. But Cole Beasley was 11 for almost 100. Sanders was 5 for 94 with 2 touchdowns. I mean, they both had great games. And it was just a collective effort. The Bills offense got an A+. On the other side, though, you know, the Bills defense, they forced 3 turnovers. Taylor Heinicke was about as threatening as I thought he would be. He had 3 touchdowns low-key, so shout out to him, I guess. But he had threw 2 interceptions, 2 pretty bad interceptions. Shout out to Jordan Poyer. He made a great play. And then also Micah Hyde. Both of the interceptions were not gimmies. I mean, they were either jumped or like the one Micah Hyde made the pick on was in some intense traffic. So shout out to him. But they also forced the fumble on Logan Thomas. Yeah, they gave up 21 points. I think this was a great all-around team effort, team win. It reminded me of some of the performances the Bills were having down the later stretch of last season, like weeks 14 through 17, where they were just rattling off great performance after great performance, whether it was against the Broncos, whether it was against the Patriots, the week 17 against the Dolphins, the game against 49ers, like where they were just literally offensively and defensively just showing out and just kind of boat racing everybody. Gave me vibes in this game. I will say Washington, not a very good team. They're not. I like their coach, their defense. They've got a great pass rush, but at this point, Washington is probably going to win like between 6 and 8 games. I just don't think they're very good. I still don't think they're going to win that fucking division. I get it. They won it last year, but I mean, they won it with 7 games, and it was because Dak was hurt. But the Bills beat up on a bad team, and you know, I would rather that be the case than them, you know, winning an ugly game 23-16 Steelers style, but just happened to be in the W column. Like that would have been kind of annoying, right? So big ups to Josh Allen, big ups to the Bills team. One thing I will say defensively, all right, and one props I will get to the football team. The one thing that I think they did right, and one thing I think they did really well. They didn't really run the ball much at all, and they didn't really run it very well, but they did a fantastic job at protecting Taylor Heinicke. I didn't think he got pressured very much. He only got sacked once, and it was one of those sacks where he was kind of, I think he was running out of the pocket, and he was kind of scrambling, and I don't know if he got tackled right around the line of scrimmage or if he got pushed out of bounds. I remember it not necessarily being one where he just got, the defensive lineman whipped whoever was trying to block him up front. Because who was end up being with the sack? It was Starlo Tulele. Or maybe it was just a coverage sack. I'm not sure. But I specifically was interested to see how the Bills' defensive front would respond after having such an amazing game last week, where that was the biggest strength of the entire game, was just how they were able to wreck the Dolphins' offensive game plan with just being able to get so much pressure on Tua and Jacoby Brissett. Today it was pretty much the opposite. That was probably their biggest weakness because they, like I said, AJ Epinesa, Greg Rousseau, I had my eyes on them. They were on the field a lot. They had a decent amount of snaps, but they could not get after the quarterback, which I'm not too upset about, honestly. I mean, the Bills were able to perform as well as they did without needing to sack, Heineke 6 times or however many they sacked him before. So I'm not too upset about that. It was a great all-around performance. Terry McLaurin was held in check. I mean, for the most part, he had similar to like Stephon Diggs, 4 for 62. There was that big play by Antonio Gibson that was like 73 yards or whatever, but it kind of reminded me of last year's game against the Jets where I think it was Jamison Crowder had like that 60-something yard touchdown. That was like the only points that they actually scored. Logan Thomas had a pretty cool catch too, but they scored 21 points, but I don't know. They had one nice little drive. They had a huge chunk play, and then they had the weird kickoff that I just don't know what to say about. Like, that just feels like it was out of the control of both teams. But yeah, the Bills beat up on a bad team, and they find themselves at 2-1, and I'm really excited because the schedule over the next couple weeks is looking pretty interesting because they go from getting to play the Washington football team to getting to play the Houston Texans next week, but then they get the Chiefs and the Titans, right? So they get 2 gimmies. I'm anticipating they'll both be gimmies. The football team was a gimme, all things considered. But then they got to play the Chiefs and the Titans, and we'll see what happens there. The fucking Chiefs actually lost today, so they are sitting at 1-2, which is just fucking bizarro world. The Broncos are 3-0, Raiders are 3-0, the Chiefs are 1-2. Who could have predicted that? Straight up, the Chargers are 1-2, I think, or no, they're 2-1. Today was a crazy week. The Ravens and their 66-yard field goal that hurts. That fucking hurts. But anyway, yeah, the Texans. What do I think? This game should not be close. This should be very similar. Same song, next verse. Tyrod's not going to play. He's going to be on IR for at least another week after this. Davis Mills looked as rookie as you could possibly get. He looked like a dime store Taylor Heineke, straight up, last week. And I can't imagine against a decent, above average Carolina Panthers team. Time will tell. I mean, they had really easy opponents the first couple weeks. I think people maybe need to pipe down a little bit on the Panthers. I don't think many people are hyping them up, but I mean, they played the Texans, played the Jets, and they did have a good game against the Saints. I'll give them that. I don't know what the fuck to think of the Saints, but still. Davis Mills looks bad. He just looks like a rookie. He looks, like I said, he looks like a great value brand Taylor Heineke, which, I mean, God. Great value brand Taylor Heineke exists. Yeah, and it only exists because homeboy got hurt. Shout out Tyrod. He actually was playing really well before he got hurt. He had a great game against the Jags, and then he was playing really well against the Browns. But, the Texans, when I look at them, the football team had a great front. What the fuck did the Texans have that's good? They don't have anything. They have nothing. There is no positional group on this team that is good. Who is on their defensive front? Who is at their second level? Who are their defensive backs? I don't know. Like I do not know. What in the fuck? The Bills are favored 17.5 points as of now. Like I don't know who the Bills have to be worried about on this Houston Texans team. Brandon Cooks has had a pretty nice start to the season. I'll give him that. You know, I think he's in the top 5 in receiving yards this year. But I mean, is he really a number one threat? I mean, he seems like kind of a nice candidate for Tre'Davious White to just kind of put a bag over his head and have fun with your 5 catches for 60 yards to go along with your 160-yard, 1 touchdown, 2 interception passing performance from your quarterback. I mean, come on, that's more or less what happened today against the football team, and I feel like this is going to be deja vu because these teams are so very similar. The Bills get them at home. Sorry, they're not similar. They just have very mediocre to bad quarterbacks with not much of an identity on offense. Straight up. I think Justin Reed's even hurt because he's like the only defensive player that I fucking can think of off the top of my head on the Houston Texans team. Like straight up. It's fucking bad because Deshaun Watson, he is the franchise. He is the only team. He is that X factor where you're like, okay, he's on this team, so we need to actually watch the fuck out. But like, I'm looking through this roster, and there is not a damn soul. Maybe their secondary, Justin Reed, Desmond King. But I mean, even at this point, how good is Desmond King anymore? He was good with the Chargers, but he hasn't been on the chart. I mean, that was 2 teams ago, And Justin Reed, I like Justin Reed. I think he's a good player, but I mean, 1 safety is not going to make a defense. I mean, we saw what happened to the freaking Seahawks last year when they had goddamn Blitz Boy as their Jamal Adams as their primary defender, and the Bills had an insane game against them. So I don't know. I can't imagine what fucking moon base you'd have to be living on to think that the Bills won't just rip these guys to shreds. I mean, based on how they played against the Washington football team, I guess the running backs are pretty good, right? I mean, they have a nice little running back rotation. I feel like David Johnson at this point. I know. Mark Ingram at this point. I know. And Philip Lindsay. I like Philip Lindsay. But I mean, that's at least 3 decent running backs. What teams can say they have that many decent at least running backs? Like I get like those guys are not young, and that's an issue. If you have a good running back, it's one thing for them to be good, but it's another thing for them to be good and young. None of those guys are young anymore. But I mean, I guess that's the one thing I can give them is they've got 3 pretty good running backs. But that's not gonna matter. I mean, maybe when they're down, 31-7. You get a lot of Davis Mills dropping back and throwing checkdowns to Rex Burkhead or David Johnson, and he turns up on 3rd and 9 and gets 15 yards. I mean, maybe you'll start one of them because he's going to get a lot of catches, and maybe you'll get a checkdown touchdown. I don't know. I don't have much to say just because I don't really see any possible scenario that the Bills lose this game. I don't see any possible scenarios that the Texans actually keep this game close. Any given Sunday, however, the Bills gave me hope and kind of reinforced the offensive powerhouse. We saw it just today, just this past week, and we know that, okay, any possible creeping thought that, maybe this was a fluke, it should be pushed aside for now. Based on how well he played today, the Bills played today, the Texans defense is pitiful. So I don't know. I don't think Josh Allen will have any problem putting up at least 3 touchdowns. I don't think that the Texans will be able to stop the Bills' pass rush from making an impact the way the football team did. You know, I'm thinking the Texans are probably going to score between. They're going to keep it in the teens, I think. Yeah. And I'm thinking the Bills are going to score at least 30-something points again. I think the Bills' offense is going to wake the fuck up. And people are going to be like, oh my God, Josh Allen's thrown for this many touchdowns over the last 2 games. And then you're like, oh shit, he played Washington and Houston. No, I think Josh Allen's probably going to have like 4 more touchdowns again. Straight up. Total. And it's going to be hell of a wake-up call. Hell of a fucking jump start. Not wake-up call, but like, all right, let's fucking hit the ground running. Let's give you some warm-ups for these big dogs that are coming into town against Kansas City and Tennessee back-to-back again for the 2nd year in a row. Yeah, this is a cupcake game. You don't really get a lot of cupcake games in the NFL, but especially with that Tyrod Taylor, no Deshaun Watson. I mean, this team fucking sucks. They suck bad. And so I'm going to say the Bills will win. I'm going to say they win 37. I don't know if I can score 40 points back-to-back games. You know what I mean? I'm going to say they win 37-17 over the Houston Texans. Josh Allen has a great game. And the Bills have all around just another good output. They pass the ball really well, and they have a decent running game to accompany it. But I mean, is it really going to matter? Because you're going to be up so much, and you're going to have so much success passing the ball that, you know, only rushing for 80 yards is not going to really, it's not going to be significant enough to worry. And yeah, everything I said about the game this week against the football team, I'm probably going to be saying next week after the Bills obliterate the Texans. And somehow, some way, if the Texans manage to, the spread isn't going to be 17.5. That's insane. But if they keep it within like a score, if somehow it's a shootout, no. Good God. I mean, there's no way in hell they win, right? Just no fucking way. But that would be a miracle. But it's not 2020 anymore, so crazy things aren't really happening. So, yeah, 37-17. The Texans are trash. But hey, maybe they'll put up more than 17 points. Probably not.